Welcome, everyone. My name is Eric Crump, and I am the president of the Managed Print Services Association, and we're excited to have you here today on our first live stream of 2025. And we're excited that we're having this predictions edition of our main live stream events. And so we appreciate all of the panelists that are here today to share their thoughts on 2025. And as things are changing, we want to make sure that you are getting the latest information from analysts that maybe you typically don't get access to. So thank you to all our panelists that are joining us today. As you can see, we have Canalys, sorry, Jay, IDC and Keypoint Intelligence all here. So we have some leading analysts here with us today to share information around managed services and managed print services. Not just about hardware, but also about services that are associated for our dealer members and OEM members that are part of the Managed Print Services Association. So these are the different analysts that we have today. We have Jay McBain, Deborah Hawkins, and Bob Palmer here. And as you can see, they're here to answer questions. So if as we have specific topics that we're talking about that we've heard from you on what you want to hear about, and also, if you have questions as we go through, please put them in the chat. And as we have time, we'll address them. We'll probably address a lot of questions you already have that you're about to put into the chat window. So just be patient with us, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So with this live stream series that we have, all the recordings are available on the MPSA company page on LinkedIn. So that's how you're probably watching us today. But you can share and like this recording with other members of your team or customers or partners, and they can watch this anytime. So there's a chat feature that's available as well on LinkedIn where you can put your questions in. And as those are coming in, we'll address those as we can. But again, if you're not following us on LinkedIn, make sure to like us and follow us on our LinkedIn company page. And you can see the link there. On linkedin.com/company/MPSA. So this might be your first time joining one of our Managed Print Services Association live stream events. And you may not know, you probably know the analysts, but you may not know who we are at the Managed Print Services Association. And so we're a community association where we focus on education, research, and best practices to help organizations like you go to market with managed services and managed print services. And we're here to help everyone to improve their business. And we just want everybody to come join our network. So if you want to know more about our association, you can go to our website. It's www.yourmpsa.org. And all the information is there about how to become a member and what are the member benefits that are available for you. Here are some of the benefits that are available today, like access to live stream events like we have today, also participating in different committees that run the Managed Print Services Association, also be able to network with different MPS professionals that maybe you wouldn't have a chance to do any other way. By joining a committee, you would potentially work with a competitor or work with a potential partner or a dealer that you want to work with as well. So there's different opportunities to meet people and get perspectives on their local market, whether they're in the US or global. So we're excited to work and be able to make that service available. We have the leadership awards. We also have our managed print certification, and we have our insiders group that's available for certified members. And depending on if you want to join as an individual or your dealership, or if you're a consultant, a vendor, or one of our OEM partners, there's a plan for you. So take a look at that. All the information is on our website. And with that, you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from the analyst. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears and change it up for our panelists. So with that, I'm going to get rid of the screen. There we go. So what I'd like to do is if everybody would give us a short introduction and tell us who you are and what you're doing now. It's a new year, so I'm sure that there's something different that you're focusing on. So if we can go ahead and start, maybe we can start with ladies first. We'll go start with Deborah, please.
That's very kind of you, Eric. Thank you. Howdy, everybody. My name is Deborah Hawkins, and I head up the workplace team of analysts at Keypoint Intelligence. I'm located in Europe, but I track the workplace market globally, and I'm a member of the MPSA.
Okay, very good. And Deborah, your microphone, if you can just check it, it was, but we could hear you, but it was a little bit broken up. But if you can check it, all right, we can switch to.
I will do.
Okay, thank you. And Jay.
Yeah, sure. Jay McBain from Canalys. Canalys is Latin for channel. We were acquired last year by Informa Tech Target, along with Omdia. I think it puts us in the top 4 with IDC and Gartner and Forrester now as analysts. But Canalys is Latin for channel. So we focus on partners, the partner business, and how these vendor relationships, distribution relationships, how the economics work around partnering. And I've been doing this for 30 years and 25 of those in managed services.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Jay. And Bob.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Eric. Good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to participate. I always love joining my MPSA friends. And thanks to all of you who are listening live. I appreciate it. I'm Robert Palmer. I'm Research VP at IDC. For those of you who don't know, IDC is a global market research company. We kind of track all sectors within the IT space. Our little group focuses on the imaging, printing, and document solution space. I primarily cover anything with a services path to market. So what I label as next-gen document services, that includes MPS as well as workflow services, security services, IT services, to the extent that hard copy OEMs are in that space. Kind of anything with a services path. But like Jay, I've been doing this for longer than I like to admit, over 30 years now, all of that in the print space. And so as a result, I kind of get my hands into pretty much anything related to print. So hardware, software, supplies, services, I'm involved in all of it. Interesting, Eric, you asked, what am I doing now? And kind of funny, like I said, I've been doing this 30 years, but I still find that there's plenty to talk about in print. So not a lot of that has changed. The landscape's changed. There's a lot happening, a lot of new things coming in and out, but still a huge business, still globally trillions and trillions of pages that are printed. And still an active market that has a lot going on. So.
No, it's good, and I appreciate that. And we were just at the Executive Connection Summit where we were hearing,
right,
from here in the U.S. about what's going on, and from dealer perspective, OEM perspective, and different other technology providers. And so it's pretty exciting. I think we were talking about 2 billion scans as well. So again, this whole digitization of moving, things into the managed service space is going to be more and more important. So it's pretty exciting time. So what we wanted to do is start out with predictions. We wanted to have one of the analysts talk about, what's their core prediction that they wanted to discuss today. Make sure that you heard about it today. And with that, how about Jay? Can we start with you, Jay, on your prediction that you'd like to talk about for today?
Yeah, sure. For us, it's a little bit of an exciting year from a partner perspective and from a services perspective, because we've got the print and imaging market at $48 billion in products. But this will be the first time in history that managed print services at 49 surpass that number. Services are growing faster than products. Partners are growing faster than their vendors. And we've got obviously a market that's growing. The overall tech industry is growing at 8.2 this year, and managed print services are growing slightly faster than that. The overall managed services market, we have $610 billion. You can imagine 25 years ago when we were watching the early days with 100 of us at a Holiday Inn somewhere. This market, just next time you're at a cocktail party, the managed services global number at 610 billion is 1.5 times larger than the SaaS industry. For all the love that Salesforce and ServiceNow, Workday, Marketo, HubSpot get on the stock market, along with 250,000 other folks, this is 1.5 times larger. It's also 1.5 times larger than the hyperscalers. Even this week with Stargate, all the love that AWS, Microsoft, and Google, on down through Alibaba, Oracle, IBM, all the hyperscalers in the world, this managed market is 1.5 times larger. By the end of this year, we'll have 82% of all end clients outsourcing, some or all of their IT, and print is absolutely, from cost efficiencies, security, return to work, all the right reasons in these conversations. The last prediction I'll make, which is a new buyer by the end of the year. We're seeing now 24,000 people on LinkedIn in FinOps roles. And these are roles that sit between the finance, the CFO, and the CIO. And what's interesting, 50% skills in both. They started out years ago as just, running containers and hyperscale clouds and where the right cost efficiencies by moving things around. They moved into SaaS business applications. They moved into kind of edge to cloud architecture. And they're absolutely making decisions now with their, kind of their technology and their financial skills in terms of driving a lot of these transformations. And print, being a line item on the budget, and a big one, is absolutely now in front of this new buyer. So if you don't know FinOps, go to finops.org is their association, and there's now tens of thousands of people that are talking about print that wouldn't have been talking about it, even a year or two ago. So here's a brand new buyer that will shake things up a little bit, and I think we need to be aware that perhaps our buyer from the years gone by, maybe before COVID, may have changed.
No, and that's true. Yeah, I've definitely seen it myself as that's happening. So that's pretty interesting. So very good. Yeah, and Jay, one of the things also, ENX magazine has an elite dealer listing, and 25% of those dealers said managed print services was the fastest growing area for revenue last year. And 17% of those dealers said production print was the fastest growing. So definitely our space is important. And so dealers need to latch on. And if they're not taking advantage of those growth areas, they should. So thank you for that. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears over. How about Bob? We go ahead. You take your next for your prediction. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll do that. And maybe just to kind of tack on to the last comment you made there, Eric, I attended a conference at the end of last year. I can't remember who it was. It may have been SB or somebody who made a comment, was talking kind of about the standards, the benchmark standards for the dealer channel. And we're still at only about 25% penetration of the overall dealer channel that's in MPS, which is amazing, right? Because you think about where the growth is in print, as Jay rightly pointed out, it's in managed services. And yet we continue to talk about to the dealers, you need to diversify, you need to take on adjacent businesses, you need to look at this and look at that. But here's an adjacent, opportunity that's specifically related to your core business, and many of them continue to, kind of stay away. And we understand why, right? There's business model issues. There's the whole change in. There's a psychographic component, the whole requirement and investment, and how you define and measure your business and compensation plans and so forth. But still, it's a huge business opportunity. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of latch onto that last comment you made, because I thought that was good. Jay did such a great job of sort of highlighting multiple predictions in a single statement, which was great. That's not my strength. I have to tell you that right now. We IDC publishes prediction documents every year. It's always hard to pick one or two for me because we get into a lot of different ground. But I kind of thought going into this call that it would be good to focus on AI, and AI as it relates to print. You mentioned, Eric, we just came back from ECS, and AI, permeated that conference. It was in every presentation, is on the top of mind in every slide deck. You see the word there, but it's there's a lot of hyperbole associated with it. There's also a lot of talk that's sort of not related to our core business. And most of what we heard at ACS was around how to leverage AI to drive productivity within your own dealership, right? How to leverage AI to drive business efficiencies. And what we don't hear at IDC is a lot of talk about how AI might impact the print market. How is it going to change the way pages are printed? Is it going to, the way products are designed and that kind of thing? So my focus is in a couple of areas. One is that we're predicting that by 2028, through AI and other advanced technologies, we'll see a reduction in service calls of about 30%. which is going to drive significant improved uptime across the fleet. And I want to make sure that I'm differentiating between a reduction in service calls and driving service efficiencies. Those are two different things, right? I mean, we've been leveraging AI and other technologies for the past in service delivery, right? We're doing things like proactive and preemptive service and predictive service, even to do things more effectively. We made a prediction last year where we believe that 80% of print-related service calls will be resolved remotely by 2026. That's a big number, a bold number, but we're already hearing figures from several vendors that are close to that, right? And so that's really about driving service efficiencies. What I'm talking about here is actually reducing the number of service-related calls. There's a couple of factors behind that. I think really three of them. One of them is just going to be driven, as I talked about, this improvement in the service model. And certain service-related issues that are now handled remotely, like firmware upgrades and device driver deployments, some elements of device configuration. Some of those things are handled automatically, right? And just pushed out. And so that's driving in a reduction in calls, but we're also seeing the change in the fleet, right? This migration from A3 to A4, it's not universally true, but the typical A4 size device requires fewer service interventions. It's designed with more CRUs. It's designed to be a more service-friendly device. It's certainly the device that helped lead the transition to MPS, right? It's what drove MPS. And so at the same time, we see vendors that are intentionally designing their MFPs to last longer, right? They're looking to keep devices in the field longer. They're designing products as platforms so that they are flexible and extendable in the field. They have a longer useful life. Then you combine that on top of the fact that we're printing fewer pages, right? So that means a lower AMPV, less wear and tear on the device. And then lastly, vendors continue to leverage these technologies to proactively monitor and manage, but also do self-healing, right? So one of the things we're seeing a lot is just the leveraging of AI-infused technologies around predictive analytics and IoT-enabled hardware to kind of predict and resolve issues even before they occur, right? So that's going to be a big
Okay.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks, Eric.
Okay, Bob, I think we just lost you.
Audio as well.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and switch gears. I think Bob was getting close to the end there. Hopefully he can rejoin us. Let's go ahead and switch then over to Deborah.
Sure, let's do that. And I'm getting a lot of disruption on the line, actually. I'm not sure if everybody's experiencing that, so apologies. So I've chosen my prediction based on something that I am pretty close to, and that is sustainability, driven by some of the ESG initiatives that are planned to take hold throughout 2025. My belief is that remanufactured devices will reach about 15% of new placements of workplace printers and MFPs in 2026. As sustainability becomes a key differentiator in purchasing decisions. I know Europe is ahead of the curve here. The US market is lagging behind, but hey, who says Europe can't lead? Sometimes, at least, particularly as the European government moves in this direction and starts to stipulate what companies can and can't do. And we've seen very much from a customer perspective, larger enterprises as well as government rules institutions, they're already taking the lead around things like energy efficiency, recycling, using refurbished or remanufactured parts or even devices, and as they become available, right? So that's really going to be ramping up, and we expect to be a lot of changes in the marketplace there. Much of that second life hardware has previously been offered and served only by the channel. And perhaps this will create a new opportunity, new areas for the channel to partner with vendors that don't currently have facilities or services themselves. And we see that the investment by some of the major manufacturers is huge right now, trying to realign things such as what about device longevity? How long will it stay in the field? What about device circularity? Trying to help them to stay relevant and in demand.
Very good. Yes, definitely. In the U.S., we're starting to see that happen in real life. So it's definitely very interesting. We saw that at ECS as well, as there was some discussion on that topic. So let me see. I think I have Bob.
Yeah, I've rejoined. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think I'm going to leave my camera off. I don't know what's going on, but let's just leave the camera off just to save some bandwidth and make sure I can stay on the line. So thanks.
That sounds good. Thanks, Bob.
And I think I did finish up there at the end. So if you need me to come back and restate some things, I can. But go ahead and move on.
Okay, it's coming in a little bit garbled a little bit, but we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
All right. Well, thank you. There we go. So thank you for giving us your core prediction there at the beginning. And so what we wanted to do is there were some specific areas, about 6 different areas that we wanted to kind of talk about. And so we just want to bring up one of the areas, and then whoever would like to start can start. The first one, which probably most people that are joining this live stream wants to talk about, is print vendor consolidation. So it's definitely at the end of last year, as Xerox announced that they had plans to acquire Lexmark. I think unexpectedly started a lot of discussions, as well as the ongoing discussions of Ricoh and Toshiba, as well as Fujifilm and Konica Minolta. So it would be great, even post what, it's maybe a month since that was out, so that things are changing. So who would like to kind of start off with that topic? Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can kick it off. So last Tuesday, I was at Xerox's sales kickoff. This is a few weeks after they acquired Lexmark. And it was also with their new team at IT Savvy. So they acquired a major partner, major managed services provider, managed print. So you can see how vendors, are starting to think about this, not only from the product perspective, but also the services perspective. So that's another, thing we're going to be watching very, very closely. If you look at every market, across hardware, software, in our industry, there's about $1 trillion of hardware, about $1 trillion of software. But there's a natural consolidation to, 3, at maximum, maybe 4 players in every market. You recognize 3 hyperscalers. You recognize 3 PC manufacturers and server manufacturers. 3 major storage vendors. When you get to that point, and especially in a market that's mature, growing or flat, in the single digits, there's a natural economic model where the world, rolls back to, 3 major, maybe 4 manufacturers. This is just linear supply chain. It's simple economics that you can't have, 10 vendors, serving that type of market. So this level of consolidation has been a long time coming. It's very messy, in terms of all the things you just mentioned, who's talking to who and what stages of they're in. Private equity has taken a while to kind of figure out this market. They've not delineated between kind of the, printers and what happened during the pandemic from the services. Because in the broader managed services area, companies like ConnectWise and Kaseya are going to IPO. They're generated billionaires at Datto, at ConnectWise, now at Pax8. So private equity does understand the broader managed services story, but they haven't made the print and imaging, the traditional dealer channel, they haven't made the connection point. And I think in the next couple of years, we'll be getting more phone calls and we'll getting, more interest in terms of those wanting to pour money into this opportunity.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I'll jump in. If you can hear me, are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
So, sounds clear.
Great. So I agree with Jay. And, it's an interesting time in the market, really. it's inevitable for vendor consolidation, as he pointed out, but it's also, anytime you get to this point in a very mature market, it also becomes ripe for disruption, so it's also a time when historically we've seen non-traditional players who've not been in the space come in and be very disruptive with new models, new products, new ways to approach the market. So it's on the one hand, you talk about vendor consolidation. On the other hand, we had Caton come in, we had Fujifilm expand its market presence, so there's a lot of people trying to vie for what is just a very disruptive market right now. But I agree with what Jay's saying. I mean, I think you look at what Xerox is doing there, and in some ways, where else would they go, right? They don't have many options. But number two, you can kind of see where they're hedging their bets, right? The growth's in A4, the growth's in IT services or IT path to market. They're probably going to invest in diversification of their channel, to be looking more at IT savvy partners, right? Because as we talked about before, as the old legacy service model changes, it moves away from this sort of requirement for a high touch, model where traditional dealers have sort of lived in the complexities of print, right? Those things are going away. And so you can see where Xerox is hedging its bets. But we expect continued consolidation. And I agree with him, usually you end up with 4 or 5 vendors in a market of kind of this size and this level of maturity. And that's likely where we're going to be. You can look at some of the other things that have happened before this acquisition, like, partnerships with Rico and KM and others, right? And you can kind of draw some lines to say, are those just efficiencies, or is there? You have to wonder, is there some long-term further consolidation between those organizations, especially when you see that the JV has such, there's such a gap in ownership between the major stakeholder and the minority stakeholder in the JV, right? You can kind of see that there's some potential consolidation of those vendors as well. And so, we expect this to continue to march on.
And Deborah, what's your thoughts? I know you, especially your perspective, being in Europe. I know you cover global, but I think obviously you have a very specific perspective from a European perspective.
Well, I think some of this is also about manufacturers consolidating and making their manufacturing production more efficient. So that is also very tied, for example, to the whole element of circularity. At the moment, everybody's focusing on, so what sites do those manufacturers have, and where are they located in the world, and how do we want to reduce or relocate in future? So there's a lot of emphasis at the moment on what are the local manufacturing facilities, or even remanufacturing facilities, bring it back to my point about sustainability. Who's got what out there, and what are we going to need in the future? What are we going to need from a total volume level, and how is that going to be distributed? So we've got some real powerhouses that are emerging, and obviously business print is at a very mature level. There are still some pockets of persistent print, and I think there's a clear indication that sort of the whole industry is going more to a spec down, smaller, more compact view of what we want in a hybrid workplace. And with all of the threats of tariffs coming, that's another reason to reassess where are we producing right now, and where are we pushing devices to. So lots of things happening, and I think it's really important that that manufacturers, vendors, and also the resellers really look at the niche that they're in and where they can have a unique offering.
Yeah, definitely. And especially since 2018, that, when some of those tariffs were in place before, people were already making, changes on what they were doing. So it's, so it'll be different. Something that's for sure is change for 2025. So just because we talk about it today might be different in about 24 hours. So you just...
No, that's absolutely true. And I think the other element you have to consider is that just because there's a merger or an acquisition doesn't mean it works, right? And so, as is always the case, the devil's in the details here with this one between Lexmark and Xerox. And there's a lot of good things you could look at as a result of this combination, right? It does provide Xerox with access to an A4 portfolio, which they didn't have. It broadens their presence in certain markets. It does a lot of things, but also there is a lot of overlap. Not necessarily a lot of product overlap. There's a lot of overlap in terms of solutions and services. Combined, the two companies make about 25% market share of the global MPS space, but most of that's in the enterprise, and most of that's on two separately developed and heavily invested in global service delivery platforms, if you know what I mean. So which one of these platforms do they move to, or do they combine these two platforms in some way? What does it mean for customers who are up for contract renewal? All of these things are questions no one's going to be able to answer until, much, much later. But the devil's in the details, and they have a lot of things that they're going to have to work out, right?
Yeah, and
I think we can. I think we can take inspiration from kind of the broader industry. So one story is, partners expanding what they're doing around the customer journey. We've been on a multi-decade decline in resale margins, and we had a survey out to 20,000 partners, and the number one answer they're looking to vendors for now is to recognize and incentivize them for non-transacting activities. If they're in there in a consulting gig, a design architecture work, the configuration, pricing, quoting, the implementations, the integrations, and obviously the managed services every 30 days forever. And pushing vendors to go and do a better job quantifying those services and how they reduce your cost to acquire a customer, how they drive a customer for life. So we followed that up with, going back and saying, well, what are you doing? In other words, what are you charging for now that would have been maybe done for free? You would have done consulting for free. You would have done the design work for free because the margins would cover it. Well, over 50% of partners now are charging for each of these things. Over, a third of partners are doing implementation integration work like an SI would in the past. They're doing the managed services. There's over 337,000 companies now with one managed contract in the world. It's massive. So this is now a world where a partner's not a partner anymore. They're checking 3.2 boxes. And this was the big one that came out, is 44% of them are building software. If you're selling into a transformation, if you're selling into a deal, it's a 7-layer stack to drive an outcome. And there might be opportunities at layer 6 or layer 7 to develop custom software. And now AI can write that software. You don't have to hire developers and programmers. So with 44% of partners kind of playing an ISV role on top of SI, on top of managed services, on top of VAR, this is a really different world. And we're going to see expansion around the customer journey and less partners relying on any resale margin. And I'll end this conversation with 2.5 years ago, Microsoft kind of took away the gold, silver, bronze resale margins and spread them out like peanut butter. And they started funding all these before, during, and after activities that were non-transactional. And by doing that, they've outgrown AWS 26 straight quarters, and they became the most valuable company in the world on Wall Street. So guess what? A month ago, Cisco joins, and they're a big hardware vendor, as you know. They joined the fray. And by February of next year, there is no gold, silver, bronze. There is no, big resale margins. It's all going to be spread out. And you can imagine that every print vendor is inbound, with us, asking now, not if, but when they start to kind of smash this old economic model and start to measure, monitor, manage, get these things to be reliable, repeatable, scalable, programmatically, and change the entire print industry by doing it. And the partners that do the most work, the partners that deliver the most value across that customer journey, are going to start earning double or triple what they would have in the past. And this is a big change that's going on, and we can see it already happening in the broader tech industry.
Wow, you just opened a big can of worms there, Jay. But yeah, that's so yeah. So kind of in that vein, though, we can transition to our next topic, which everybody wants to talk about, which is AI, right? And it all lines up to what you're just talking about, as people are trying to look at new avenues to charge, for services, whether in the pure managed service space or in the managed print services space as well. And of course, we had other breaking news with the Stargate announcement this week as well. So actually, I'm glad we scheduled this for today instead of earlier in the week. Allows us to have a more complete discussion, at least for this week. Jay, would you want to start off talking about that, or?
Yeah, I can position it. If some of the leaders that you saw on stage during this announcement and you saw at the inauguration on Monday, they're throwing out numbers on what the build in this AI generation. The client server era was 20 years long. The cloud era, starting with SaaS, moving into infrastructure, was 20 years. March of 2023, we kind of kicked off a new 20-year era in our industry. The good news is it's from edge to cloud, where the processing, where the storage. But Microsoft, for example, is on record saying it's going to be a $6.5 trillion build out. Not to be outdone, OpenAI, Sam Altman came and said it's going to be a $7 trillion. Both those numbers are larger than the entire industry of what businesses and governments spend today on hardware, software, and services. So these are really, really big numbers. And it's 6 or 7% of world GDP. So just a massive arms race. And on the first day, second day in office, the new U.S. administration, commits $500 billion. There's $100 billion that's locked in, but $500 billion to make sure the U.S. this is national defense, this is data sovereignty. For all the right reasons, the U.S. has to win this 20-year era. And the other fun fact about 20 years is 52% of the Fortune 500 from 20 years ago no longer exists. 52% of today's Fortune 500 won't exist 20 years from now. The decisions they make today on AI, on this new buyer, on this platform economy, and all these changes that are happening in 2025, that'll be the chapter in the book 10 or 20 years from now explaining, why some of these companies either didn't make it or hit a home run. So, $500 billion, by the way, is part of that $7 trillion build out, but print is absolutely part of this story as we kind of go into the next stage. So exciting.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I don't. This was a big topic like we said at the beginning at ECS. Everything you just talked about, even before the announcement, they were already talking about how, from a national perspective, that the U.S. is, it's about, taking care of the national concerns and trying to go as fast as possible. So it's very interesting.
And by the way, the U.S. government in the world is the #1 customer of AI, in the last couple of years. So they're spending more than the banking industry, the pharmaceuticals, the airlines. They're spending more than any other industry. The federal government is customer #1, and this just put an exclamation mark on that.
Okay, Deborah, would you like to take your stab around the AI topic and maybe more print oriented, or?
Yeah, a little bit more print oriented, a bit closer to my heart, right? So one of the things that I've been really waiting for is, of course, that switch between proactive and predictive service or maintenance. For my eyes, nobody is really doing predictive maintenance. We all talk about it, but it's really only proactive based on very, very ancient historical data or maybe last week's data, but there's nothing in there. There's really real-time stuff that any kind of reseller today is looking at and assessing, have I got to go there tomorrow? Have I got to go there in the next hour? So that was going to be a big, big switch for our industry. And I know that there's a lot of the resellers out there that are really worried about that because, of course, that's a huge part of their income.
Yes.
But they shouldn't be worried. They have to transition it to, this is a service that we offer, keeping your device up and running, which is a very different take than if I say, I'm going to come and repair your device if it breaks down. So we really have to switch our thinking on, this is a professional service that I'm offering you 24/7, and it's going to keep going on as long as you keep paying, and I'm going to make it even better every time. And so that's going to be a big, big switch for our industry. And I'm really looking forward to those specific providers that are going to help the OEMs or even the independent software vendors, the ISVs, who are looking to optimize that predictive service role.
All right. And Bob?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I agree with Deborah in some ways. I mean, I think we're probably not seeing vendors yet doing as much on the predictive or preemptive side, but we certainly see vendors rolling out ecosystems to do it, right? You can look at what HP's doing with the workforce experience platform and look at how they're
Mhm.
Dear.
included to, I think, am I still on?
You're back.
Oh, jeez. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're here, Bob.
I'm sorry, I'm dropping out for some reason. I must be having network issues here in my town. But in any case, you know, what they're doing at the workforce experience platform is very interesting, leveraging analytics and IoT to kind of drive that sort of preemptive model across the entire fleet, right? Other vendors have talked about this as well. I like Deborah said, I don't think we're quite there yet, but you can certainly see where they're investing in it. And I agree too that, you know, this is a change in the service delivery model. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to have an impact on your revenue stream, but it's certainly moving to a less complex, lower touch service model, which means you need to find other ways to drive your profit. You know, and that's always been kind of the case in moving away from the traditional model to MPS even, right? MPS is profitability is elsewhere, right? So in fact, the one thing that's a killer to an MPS implementation is if you have to send a service technician out to service a device, right? You don't want to do that. So so you can kind of see where the market's headed there. I think it's interesting to look at what the vendors are talking about as it relates to AI, the print vendors. I mean, as I said before, a lot of it's, you know, buzzword type stuff. Xerox is talking about embedding AI into their hardware. HP is talking about building the print AI experience, which is really more about driving a new, you know, improved user experience, leveraging AI technologies to, you know, kind of make it easier, more productive, more efficient to print. These are kind of interesting things, but they're not really earth-shattering to me. You know, I think the bigger thing is how are they going to leverage these technologies to really drive enhancements across the ecosystem. We did a survey a couple of months back, and customers are very interested in improving the print experience overall, but where their interests lie is in efficiency and productivity and cost savings and, you know, improving access to services and solutions and those kinds of things, maybe even to some extent customization and personalization. So, you know, those are kind of the areas I think vendors need to look at from the print experience perspective in order to kind of leverage AI technologies across the ecosystem.
Yeah, and definitely challenge, you know, dealers that are on the call. You should challenge, you know, the partners that you're working with to understand what they are doing, because I know that they have specific offerings that they've been either using internally in their own companies and then trying to evolve that out externally. So they have some experience there, but yeah, definitely people are talking about it. So you definitely want to hear it directly from them. All right, so we're going to switch gears really quick because we want to talk about a lot of things. I'm probably not going to get to all of them, so but that's okay. That's why the analysts are available afterwards. So if you want to hear more from them about these topics, obviously you can contact them, and their companies will be more than happy to talk to you about that. So kind of switching gears real quick is around, but it kind of in the line of productivity. You're talking about hybrid work and return to office again this week. There's and it's not just what's happening with the new administration, but it's also large companies. You know, a lot of large companies are mandating people to go back to work. So we have the hybrid work activity that's going, as well as return to work. And who would like to kind of tackle how digital transformation and how and where we work is changing for 2025? Okay,
I can kick things off because I tend to talk at a galactic level, and we can roll this right down. But I will say that if you look in 2024, 45% of the world's population went into elections in 54 countries. 90% of the incumbents lost. And there's obviously a shift to the right happening globally. And where there isn't, there's people like Elon Musk meddling in foreign politics to get it shifted there. So in the comments section, there's a lot of ESG sustainability talk. There's another talk about DE&I, but return to work is connected to this. where the power shift between employees, which grew significantly during the pandemic, and business. And as the world shifts right, you're going to have probably 4 years of much less talk about sustainability or any regulations or governance around it, much less around DE&I, and obviously much more push on a return to normal, which people would say is a return to pre-pandemic work environments. This is actually, really good for the print industry, returning to the glory days of double-digit growth and things like that, and modernization. But the fact of the matter is, this is going to be put on hold at least for 4 years. But as a, kind of an analyst looking forward, probably we're in a kind of a 10-year shift to the right on many of these subjects, and watching kind of the political currents by country, by by the different industries and things like that, and who tends to be kissing the ring on any given moment and any given day, will have impact on all of these things and have impact on this industry.
Okay. Go ahead, go Deborah.
Yeah, so I guess I'm very undecided on the whole return to office and who will mandate what exactly. I think there's a big difference between what is happening in the US market and what is happening in the European market, as well as what's happening in the Asian market. And even today, I was having a conversation with some people located in the UK. There's very different things happening there at the moment, going totally in the opposite direction from return to office. Really much more hybrid, much more reduction of the work week. So, I mean, with Brexit has come many different opinions, right, in that corner of the world. I think that if we look at the US market, yes, return to office mandates are really strong. I don't believe the whole discussion around people are less productive in their homes. I've been working from home myself for more than 20 years, and I'm very productive, I can assure you. I think it has to be a very personal decision, and I think it's a shame if companies don't relate that discussion to the personal level, when they just sweep in with we're going to enforce this for their own reasons that other people might have very different opinions. So I think it's really important for the workers, everything they did in turning their own homes into offices, workplaces during the pandemic, that could hit us again. All the reasons that we did that at the time, it could very well happen again, and we should be prepared for that, and not just enforce something that a dominant leader might like today.
Yeah, just to your point, in Europe, Elon Musk is in the headlines this week, actually in the last 24 hours, about federal return to work. Tesla and his other companies are fully return to work. But watch the meddling he's doing in Germany, in France, in the UK. They've already earned a resignation of a liberal prime minister in Canada. So, kind of strap in and buckle up, because the further right that these countries move, it's correlated with return to work. It's a conservative value. So it's politics kind of overlapping the industry. But again, if you're looking forward and trying to predict where things are going to be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, this is the next, series of things that we're going to be looking at closely.
Yeah, I think I'm actually in both camps. I think what we see happening, IDC has a whole gaggle of analysts that are focused on future of work and focused on this topic. So in some sense, I'm leveraging a lot of what I hear. But at IDC, we talk much less today about hybrid work, and we talk more about flexible work policies. And so I think with return to work mandates, what we're seeing and hearing is that within federal agencies, there's push to bring everybody back full time, but within most organizations, it's really more of a normalization than it is like a mandate to return to work fully. Don't forget, before the pandemic happened, we were at 15 to 20% of the workforce was already working remote anyway, right? We we had developed technologies that allowed a certain number of people to do it. Those who could do it productively and effectively and efficiently and still get their work done, still perform their performance reviews and not get fired. They were doing it just fine. Like Deborah said, she's been doing it forever. I've been doing it since '94. So a lot of people have been working remotely. It's really more about returning to some sense of normalization around the percentage of workforce that's in, but no matter what, going forward, we're going to have an IT ecosystem that supports flexible work policies, right? It's going to have to be an ecosystem that allows people to work efficiently and productively wherever they are. And I think what this means from a print perspective is that it opens up so much opportunity, because Jay touched on the fact that we're a lot around IT modernization. It's a big thing for most companies. Companies are investing in modernization of IT infrastructure. They're investing in cloud. They're investing in outsourcing. They're investing in all of these areas. But every time you make these investments, success hinges on the weakest link in the ecosystem. And print is a legacy process that needs modernization. It is crying for modernization, right? It's one of the reasons why we're seeing this big push towards moving print to the cloud and getting rid of on-prem print infrastructure, right? That's a big part of it. And so for print providers, there's a real opportunity here to begin to look at print more strategically, which means you have to change who are the stakeholders that you're talking to. We don't just talk to procurement and facilities management anymore. You need to talk to C-suite. You need to talk to line of business. You need to talk to security and admin, and you need to talk to everybody, infrastructure guys, right? Everyone needs to be involved in the conversation, because print has to be viewed as a subcomponent of an overall IT infrastructure, right? And it's got to get better.
Very good. Well, we're jam-packed, so we could keep on going, and we actually have more topics that we could cover. But what I'd like to do is we'll go ahead and just kind of give each analyst their final word to kind of cover off, something to make sure that you get what they wanted to make sure that you, from a prediction perspective. And again, if you have other questions that weren't answered and you'd like to, talk to an analyst about that, you've been introduced to the analysts that know what's going on, and so they're more than happy to talk to you more about that outside of this recording. So with that, for the final word, I'll let who'd like to go first? Deborah, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Let's bring it back to sustainability, the thing that I started with. That's the thing that I think everybody out there needs to have a view of what direction are they going to go. Putting down the practical steps for businesses to leverage those ESG initiatives. In my opinion, everybody should find a good advisor, a sparing partner. Also look at what the competition is doing. Maybe ask your OEMs, the vendors, to help you. So make sure that you don't cross it off and say that doesn't apply for me for political reasons, or for I don't think there's any value in sustainability. I think it's still really, really important for all stakeholders in our industry to inform themselves and get their own position on sustainability.
All right, very good. Good. And Bob, will you go ahead and go next for your final word?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of already went off on a rant there at the end around print modernization, but I think that's really where a lot of my focus is these days. Pretty passionate about that. I think if you look at the pain points that organizations face, a lot of those are around areas of legacy print infrastructure. You need to enable an efficient and productive, flexible work policies. And so leveraging the cloud, creating a secure print from anywhere to anywhere ecosystem is really important. They're investing in cloud and SaaS models. And so that needs to happen on the print side. A lot of our customers, when we talk to them, when we do end user survey, the real focus is on reducing the burden on IT, right? They just don't want to worry about print anymore at all in any capacity. And so, the ability to kind of leverage these new IoT-enabled devices and AI technologies and analytics to kind of keep the fleet accessible and healthy and that's all a big part of the NPS value proposition, but it's probably not something we lead with. We still, as an industry, tend to lead with, how can I take 30% out of your out of your costs, which is less attractive to most of these customers. Most of them now are moving on from that. So really, I think print modernization is a big thing. Security is also a big thing. AI certainly plays a role in that, but security as a high-level topic is not going away. And so, we spend a lot of time there as well.
All right, good. And Mr. Jay.
Yeah, I think as I've done all along here, I'll say that, we get mired into the daily workings of the industry and, who's consolidating with who and who's buying who and what does that mean? I get my daily dose of the end of the day with Ray and other things. So, we do get mired into this industry a little bit, but if you bring your eyes up a little bit and look forward, you've got a new buyer starting this year. The majority buyer of print and print services is now born after 1982, a millennial. Different buying criteria, different psychology, different customer journey. Think about that. One, two is the platform economy. Didn't talk about marketplaces, but the managed services themselves are going to be transacted more and more on credits in digital marketplaces. Doesn't mean the hardware products are going to flow that way, but the services are. Number three, we talked about the economics of partnering. Every vendor is starting to consider rolling out programs that look very different than what we grew up on, removing the money from resell and spreading it like peanut butter. AI is going to change, but we have a 59% growth rate in services around AI. Figure out where those are, build the skills, the practices, build the competencies to go get that. And something we didn't even discuss. Right now, we're going through the end of the cookie. How you market to this new digital first, digital only buyer isn't through the Googles and the Facebooks and us being the products on the internet. We're in the post-cookie world now where partnerships become everything in those first 28 moments. It's not word of mouth. It's not digital MarTech and AdTech the way we had in the past. So here's 5 examples that aren't day-to-day happenings in the industry itself, but will be remarkable on who succeeds in the next generation, 3, 5, 10-year outlook. And the most successful companies will have their eyes in both places.
Awesome. Well, that was great. That was a super jam-packed hour, and I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, Bob, for hanging in there with the technical issues. We were able to make sure to get all insights from all analysts. So thank you, everybody, also that joined us today, or if you're watching this as a recording. If you weren't sure which analyst belongs to which company, I just went ahead and put that up there on the screen. You can connect to those different analysts via LinkedIn. I'm sure they wouldn't mind you to connect to them. And if you had additional questions or if you're interested in services from their companies, they would be more than happy to talk to you about that. So again, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. And again, thank you to our analysts and for your predictions and your thoughts throughout today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a good day.